Hi, my name is Sean Graves, and today we are going to build a new synthesizer that is subtractive and not additive like this guy over here. So come along with me and let's enjoy the ride and the education of building your own modular synthesizer. For our voice, we are going to be using the Behringer 112 here, and this is a model of the old Roland VCOs that used to be back in like the day, the 70s, maybe 80s. And so this right here is two separate oscillators that are all together in one. They're absolutely mirrored. So there's pulse width modulation, there's of course, you know, three separate sounds that we can use, there's range, pulse width, and then these three little plugs here is what we can use to modulate or to change parameters of these oscillators. And again, there's three for each, which is super cool. There's also hard sync for both of them. And so for me, this fits the bill for what I would like to achieve here in this synthesizer. You may want something different, who knows? But for me particularly, I'm going with these here, and we're going to put those into the case. Because this thing is subtractive synthesis, we obviously have to take the VCO and put it into a filter. And what better filter do we happen to stumble upon but the Bafako Saline Key filter. This thing is pretty much a filter that I have already in a hard synthesizer as is, that you can't modulate, you can't really take it out of the machine. It is in there, and that is on the Micro Korg or the MS-20 Korg synthesizer. So to have this as a remodel as well as in modular form, I'm totally for it. I've been working on this filter for years practically, so it is a total best friend. It's actually kind of cool to see it in person rather than a dive menu. So now I'm starting to kind of see and connect what the Micro Korg is saying each parameter is, as opposed to having a menu, looking at it, reading and studying what this particular machine, connected, not connected, is. To break it all down, this particular filter is two separate filters that you can chain in together. As together you can do low pass or high pass frequency filtering, and you can manipulate the resonance, you can go through the filter section, and you can even do control voltage manipulation on the module here. So we're going to put that into the case and see what wacky sounds we can come up with. For mixing and blending the sounds together, because I just don't want it to be I could have it be a straight square wave, or I could have it be a straight sine or saw wave if I wish, right? But if I wanted to blend two sounds together and make one tone together, we've got to use the IntelliGel mix-up. And this puppy here, I use it also in this machine here, and freaking it's super cool. I mean, there's so many plugins to try to manipulate tones. In fact, even with the white noise, we can add it to here, and or color noise, we can add it in here and kind of blend static into our synthesis. And speaker out, come on, I mean, it's a bang for your buck. Why not have it? For low frequency oscillating, as well as modulating, as well as pulse width modulation, as well as just being a clock and being the thing that it wants to be, a CV controller if we want it to be, is DivKit's O-Kit here. This thing is 8 separate LFOs that start from the top, work all the way down, attenuates for speed or how much the LFO moves, as well as modulation and attenuating the control voltage of this module here. So this is a bang for the buck, totally worth it, and I've seen so many setups with this particular LFO in it, so it's going in the case. Another Doppler module that we'll be getting into is the sequence selector. This clock divider here is essentially, it takes in a trigger and it syncopates it to a rhythm, so it doesn't have like everything just goes when the LFO says to go, or the clock says to go, or whatever module decides to trigger this thing right here. So we've got a whole bunch of different steps, and then once it's filled up, it starts back at the top again and goes all the way down. And of course, there's also resetting the sequence of events. We can use that for modulation, we can use that for so many different things. So this thing, going in the box. Coming back from the depths of a box that had a whole bunch of modules in it, because I guess I just started collecting modules for some reason, is the Ataxia by Dreadbox. This is a dual ADSR or envelope generator, and it's, again, what drew me to it is not just the color, but also just the sliding of the parameters here for attack, decay, sustain, release, as well as the attenuators for both of the outs, as well as all the manipulation that you can do with just this one little thing. So this is what's going to architect our tones to be musical. So because I would like my music sound to have like a melody to it, or at least something that is expressive and not just the same tone being hit, we're going to use the Triana 2 micro sequencer 2, and what we're going to do is just use this to then tell the oscillator what note that we want it to jump to, which is dialing it in and pressing buttons to say, hey, I want this note to happen, or I don't. So yeah, and there's a lot of cool tricks that are underneath the hood here, especially with like the clock, the direction, transparent, reset, all those cool things that this tiny little thing can do. So for effects, I'm going to be using a delay here. This is from Outtro. This is the analog delay module. This looks super cool, super, I don't know, of age. It looks like it's from a time when analog was analog, right? And never worked with it before, but I'm super excited about it, and we're going to test it out. We're probably going to be doing a lot of dubbing with a particular oscillator and or maybe a particular group of tones together. So let's check out how this thing works out. And of course, we need to somehow amplify our tones, so what we're going to do is go with a dual VCA. Actually, this is a quad VCA. Totally, like, it's big enough to be a dual, but it's a quad VCA by Doppler, which is super cool. Effectively, each one of these knobs corresponds with an attenuator down below, which is also designated by numbers here. The outs happen to be by themselves. You can out them yourself, or you could do a selected out, or you could do all the outs as one channel. So we're definitely going to be using a lot of these here and then amplifying our tones and seeing what happens here. So let's go put these things in, punch them all in, drive them down, turn it on, see what happens. Just like that, we have all the modules inside the case, which is super cool. I can't wait to hear what kind of bloops and bleeds we're gonna make with this thing. So yeah, let's make some patches. Alright, so just to get started here, we are going to be getting into our first patch of our synthesizer here that we have decided to Frankenstein together. But the first thing I want to talk about is these things. These are called patch cables, and there's two separate types that I personally like to use. There's the stackable kind, which this is pretty darn cool because you can take a non-stackable and pop it in there as such. And I really like using these. I mean, it's just so handy, and we will be using them in this for a couple of patches here, so let's get into it. For the first patch here, what I would like to do is we're going to get let me set up this is a sound bank, obviously, so we're going to take a square wave. Let's put it into the delay. From the delay, we'll put it into the mixer. From the mixer, we can put that into the filter. We'll also take the output of the second VCO and put that into the mixer. And shoot, we'll even put the output of the mixer into the second filter. And then from the filter, we'll take the outs, put it into the VCAs. And then from the VCAs, I have a whole bunch of patch cables. And it should behoove you to also have a menagerie of patch cables to get to this place in life. But we've already effectively made a patch. We've already started patching. And the only thing wrong with it right now is obviously output. So we haven't really achieved much. If I was to turn on anything, we would be getting just a tone, right? And that's not necessarily where we want to be in life. So with that being said, let's get some movement going on. And I think like the thing is like when it comes to Eurorack, have a purpose and then start having fun with it, you know? Everything in this box should have a purpose. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the LFO here to trigger the Triana here, and it is freaking awesome. We're also going to get a LFO to trigger the clock divider. It's moving, freaking sweet. Actually, yeah, and then what we'll do is we'll take just a couple of tiny patch cables because we don't need to go far, and we'll patch the first one into trigger 1, second one into trigger 2, just like that. So now we should be getting some kind of output. And then in order to hear that, we're going to move, oop, not big enough, not long enough. It's fine. That's why we have these ones. But yeah, for sure. Always make sure that your outs are being plugged into your ins. Don't plug two outs together. That will short circuit a module and you'll just see tons of cash just go right out the money, right down the trash can. And so right now I'm opening up the ADSR. We can tell from the lights here that the ADSRs are working. But where's the sound? Right now what I'm doing is I'm just opening up the VCAs, turning on the mixer. Changing the filter here. And then turning up the LFO. And I'm even going to go around and change the parameter, the shortness of the decay of envelope generator number 2. And last but not least, we need to make this sound a little musical. So what we're going to do is grab another stack of cables here. We're going to take from the CV out 2 of the sequencer and put it into LFO 1. And the same can be said for VCO number 2. And then, to have more fun, what we're going to do is we're going to change up the pulse width modulation of the square wave here. So what we're going to do is, this is like more of like the let's have fun section here. So what we'll do is we'll patch for the pulse width modulation in from the LFO. You can attenuate how much that LFO is really affecting your VCO as well. We're going to turn that all the way up. And for more modulation fun, we can sync in and out. So what sync does is it tells one VCO, hey, when I'm going, you're following along with me. And it kind of takes, like, instead of two sounds just kind of going at their own separate on and off switch or rise and fall, it brings it all together. And the cool thing about these attenuators is you can change the amount of these signals going into each other. And then last but not least, I love some good frequency modulation. So let's get from the LFO or from the VCO1, put it right into VCO2. And let's just change that puppy up a little bit. Get it nice and grimy looking. I'm changing up the delay. There we go, now we got some cool effect going. And last but not least is our white noise generator, also known as our random voltage. Let's go ahead and add some color. And for modulation fun, since we do have a random, we can put that into the direction input of the Triana. By changing up just the VCAs here, we can also change the quality of the sound here. Wow, it's got like some really cool distortion going on. And this right here is our first patch. Which I know it sounds like, it looks like a lot. It really does. It looks like a big old spaghetti mess right here. But it's a lot of fun to get into, and let's see what other sounds we can create from this. Effectively, what we've done today is we've taken the VCO, we still kept everything relatively the same, going out to the VCA going out to the outs, and then what we're hearing today, the LFO's job right now, still triggering the Triana, and then those are coming out and going to the VCOs to say what pitch to go to. The random voltage generator right here, this connection, is every about 5 volts is saying, hey, go in opposite direction. So it kind of leaves like a modulation of just not hearing the same 4 notes, but hearing the same 4 notes in a different rotation every so often. The LFO is also triggering the clock divider, which is then dividing those taps into separate triggers, which then we use for the ataxia. We can even change that up. So that way we can get separate triggers. We've also architected the triggers in 2 separate ways. So every time I hit this button, I'm on a different level or a different ADSR. And shoot, we can even modulate. Or we could go into LFL mode or no mode. Still dialed in a particular LFO. And let's see, from there, changed up the delay a little bit to something that I felt was just appropriate, maybe a little less, maybe more feedback. For sure. Oh, we can even like just change the attack up just a little bit on VCO1. Or even VCO2. Whatever flavor that you particularly like. You can either touch the synthesizer and change a particular parameter, or you can just let it play by itself and it will start generating different tones. Shoot, let's get a little crazy here. Let's use a little bit of these LFOs, these lower ones that don't move very often. Let's put that into the filter here. So that way, now we've got an invisible hand that turns a parameter within the LFO, or within the VCA. Oh my gosh, within the filter. In fact, we can do different LFOs to do this, so that way it doesn't we can even change where we want that to kind of sound. There we go. And now we've got this like weird, wacky kind of pad slash bubbly sound that kind of wants to go. Even if we wanted to change it up just a little bit, or go really low. Low and slow. Just by doing this, you're changing the parameters for so much that's happening within this patch. Last but final patch that we're going to talk about here is going to be the one that we just did here. We got the envelope generator. We got one of them actually going into sample and hold and then going over to the VCA. We have the standard VCA going from a ADSR over here. What I have done though is leave the LFO going to Triana, that then goes over to the oscillators, have an LFO pulse width modulating, and of course have the delay set up. We don't really have much modulation going into the filter right now. This is supposed to be a very basic, but yet at the same time another flavor of how to patch your synthesizer. And of course, last but not least, gotta have some random. So we're gonna pop in a random voltage into Triana again and change up the melodic tones here. What I really like to do is also use, again, some of the FM modulation from VCO1 into VCO2, and hard sync from VCO1 into VCO2. turn that on to strong, and then take VCO 2 and hard sync the delay. So that way the delay sound also matches up with the rest of the tones here. And that is patching 101. Again, keep your ins and outs. Don't connect 2 outs, 2 ins. Doesn't necessarily mean anything's going to happen, but I would just stay away from that just as well. And so yeah, that is patching in a nutshell. And those are the tones. The tones you've been hearing in this whole video have been tones that this machine's been putting out. Yeah. So with that, I hope you guys and gals enjoy the synthesis process, how to take a bunch of modules from Eurorack, put them into a case, plug them all in, have some kind of sense and kind of idea of what to do with rando modules that have been collected over time. It's kind of a Frankenstein monster, if you will, but it's totally cool. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell notification for more videos just like this, and I shall see you next time. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Don't pollute. I shall see you next time. Peace.